Well, West Ham needed to win, and we were talking on the last pod how the pressure was so intense on David Moyes now. And I was quite brutal about his limitations as a manager and how West Ham have gone as high as they can possibly go with him at the helm, and the players they've got have made the intensity on expectation too much for someone like David Moyes. I want to get your take on that first of all, but they beat Forest 4-0 in this game as well, which was crucial, wasn't it? And there's been talk of, well, Declan Rice has openly said that the players have kind of met proactively. Nothing that David Moyes has requested. They've decided to get together and go, what is going on this season? What do we need to do? And the result of that has been a 4-0 victory in their most important game so far of the season. So what's your take on the West Ham situation and, more importantly, David Moyes at the moment as their manager?
It's such a funny one to judge because actually West Ham shouldn't be anywhere near the position they're in. And David Moyes has done a phenomenal job at the club, but something's not working right now. I think it's pretty well known that the only reasons Moyes still has that job is A, the credit he has in the bank from a couple of really good seasons with them, and B, is there a better option for West Ham right now? Who can West Ham realistically go out and get that's going to do a better job than David Moyes? I think they're probably hanging on till the summer because they don't feel like there's the right candidate available for them right now. But I just find it mental. When you look at that squad, it's an excellent squad of players. On the bench this weekend, they had Alphonse Areola, who they signed from PSG and has been at Real Madrid before, let's not forget. I think they had Cresswell and Emerson. I think Emerson has a Champions League winners medal from his time at Chelsea. They had Antonio, who's their record goal scorer in the Premier League. Scamacca, who they just signed for mad money. Fornals, Lanzini. That's their bench.
Yeah.
Those players are far too good to be in a relegation battle. Far, far too good. It's not even thinking about the fact they've got a world-class holding midfielder in Declan Rice. It's not to think about the form that Jarrod Bowen was in last season. It's bizarre that West Ham find themselves where they do. Something needs to turn. I'd like to say this game could be the turning point, but there's been false dawns in West Ham's season all through it, really, hasn't there? But something.
Well, that begs the question, doesn't it? That's what we were saying. If it's not the players, if the squad is right, if the transfer activity in the summer has been decent, which on paper it has, they're very good players, then it has to be the manager. So I think the thing I want you to consider is, if the players are getting together to meet almost in secret to go, what do we need to do to get out of this? Surely that's the manager's job on the training pitch to galvanise them and to get them going. David Moyes clearly isn't doing that. The limitations have been so obvious. And I think we've seen West Ham fans in our comments on our videos saying that if before Christmas they'd have got rid of David Moyes, there'd have been the likes of Lopetegui still hadn't gone to Wolves at that point before the World Cup. You know, Unai Emery, Aston Villa. In terms of squad quality, there's not much difference between West Ham and those two teams, I don't think.
No.
You know, there's potential in all three. Very similar level on paper. So why didn't they bite the bullet sooner? It feels so, I don't know, prehistoric to have someone like David Moyes and an owner like David Sullivan at the helm. And I think West Ham fans are just furious that they aren't moving forward and going for more continental, forward-thinking coaches.
Yeah, I think their squad is far better than Wolves' squad, for example. But it's one of those where I think because they invested so heavily in the summer, they are trying to see if Moyes can get that to work because they've backed a manager that's given them some success. They're running the Europa League last year. That's not long ago. And only a couple of seasons ago, we were talking about whether or not they would finish fourth. Now, if you're kind to me, you'll go back to the start of the season and find the show where I said David Moyes will not be West Ham manager at the end of the season. And it felt like a big shock, but it's not because he's always had limitations as a manager. We saw this at Everton where he struggled to get goal scorers really going. And they had a ceiling, Everton. They were always going to be about sixth. And then every now and again, they'd fall right off and they'd look like they were going to get to relegation. And the next season, they'd come back up again. And then at Man United, he showed his limitations. He didn't know how to manage world-class players. West Ham have just gone out and bought some incredibly good players. Scamacca is outstanding. We haven't seen that from him yet. Lucas Paquetá is outstanding. We've seen glimmers of that, but not enough of it. And I do think that there are limitations to a manager like David Moyes. I don't think he'll be there next season. I don't know who the right option is, though, for West Ham. I honestly don't. You're right that maybe they could have acted earlier, but Lopetegui seemed like he was always going to Wolves. Emery, maybe they could have moved for as well. London club, big transfer budget. It would have made sense. now they're running out of options without kind of going a bit left field, and that seems risky too when you've just invested so much money. So while they
Yeah.
remain in their European competition, while they aren't cut adrift from the rest of the league, Moyes will get the season. He'll go in the summer though. I'm pretty sure.
Well, this game against Forest, again, like we say, was must win. It had
Yeah,
to be a victory. Otherwise, it would have been serious trouble for West Ham. And they left it really, really late. It wasn't until the last 20, 25 minutes that they
yeah. The
actually
game
scored
woke
and
up.
broke the deadlock. Danny Ings was instrumental. He's returned to the team in some really good form. And obviously, you've seen what he can offer in flashes at
Yeah,
Villa. But they've brought a few players back into the fold. Paquetá came into the squad again. He'd been out of the team for a while. Ben Rama as well, 2 assists when he came back. So
mm-hmm.
there's a few players who had a point to prove.
Yeah.
And maybe this meeting between the players actually was the kick up the backside they needed.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Forest have been in excellent form lately as well. So this was a
Not
huge
away
win
they
for
haven't,
them.
have they?
Well, no, I suppose not. But when you look at the league table, what West Ham need to do is start dragging other teams into it. And
Yeah.
Forest was starting to look a little bit out of reach for West Ham. So it was a huge, huge result. It looked like it was going to be a very boring game. They were unfortunate. They hit the woodwork a few times earlier in the game. But like you say, it came to life in the last 20 minutes because they didn't give up. And that's a sign of a team that maybe are a bit more behind the manager than we've seen before. If you
Yeah,
see,
maybe.
if you, the reason I say that is you see teams like this go through this slump where they find themselves down in the bottom three. And then those unlucky moments, like when Bowen hits the post, that happens, and their heads drop, and the game goes. It didn't with West Ham, and actually the changes Moyes made worked. Like Antonio came on, he scored almost immediately,
Yeah.
and I think it was a Fornals assist who he just brought on as well. So I think there's fight in West Ham still. I think they've got the right characters around the club. Mark Noble's
Mm-hmm.
still around as a sporting director, obviously, and that's a huge thing for them. Rice, as their captain, really is a leader on the pitch, and his goal showed what quality he has. And when you've got someone like Danny Ings who'll get into the right positions, you're going to get 5, 6, 7 goals from Ings between January and the end of the season. That seems quite
Yeah.
likely to me, and that could be the difference. I don't think West Ham are going to be in the bottom three. I don't think they're going to be in the bottom five by the end of the season. They'll get themselves out of this trouble because they're too good. I don't like that saying normally about a side because you're in the bottom three because you've played badly. But West Ham are too good
Yeah.
to be in the bottom three, so I think they'll be fine.